So in a traditional household, traditional family, maybe a little bit stereotypical, it's usually the moms in the early years that are going to be the nurturers, the comforters. They make the infant feel safe. If you're doing any sort of reading in psychology or counseling, like I've been doing way too much of, there's a lot of attachment. I guess I'll cough like that later. There's a lot of attachment that's an important mother bond, safety, that really sets the stage for the child's life moving forward. And then the other side of it, in a traditional household, it's the dad. While the mom provides safety, the dad provides a lot of discomfort, which is why we're the ones who take off the training wheels. We're the ones who will take the kid and throw him in the deep end of the pool, or we're the ones who will make our 16-year-old daughter, Addie, learn how to ask for her own ketchup when the server comes, and that can be very distressful. Just pushing our kids out of that comfort zone towards discomfort, towards growth, towards development. And while Melissa said this morning that all of us have something in common, whether we had the worst dad or the best dad growing up and how we're all welcome, I had a realization a couple weeks ago as I was praying and thinking about Father's Day is all of us in this room, whether we've had the worst dad or the best dad, have also had some father wounds and some father hurt along the way. Whether it results of his goodness and his kindness and his love and his desire for your development, or whether it was a result of his own sinfulness and brokenness, we've all been wounded in different ways, and that's why Father's Day is kind of rough. So Father's Day, I think the best moment that I think of is of myself as a dad, and if you ask Benny about the worst moment of myself as a dad, it's the same moment. Benny loves safety, he loves routine, rigidity, safety. He's going to make sure everyone's seatbelt's on in the car. He has the responsibility of like a 35-year-old man. When my daughter, Addie, I'm going to pick on her because she walked out of here, when she was 11 years old begging to be left home by herself, she said, "Why can't I stay home by myself?" I said, "Because your younger brother is not old enough to watch you yet." So Benny, we're golfing with my friend Mike Dunn, who's here. We're just having a great time, and Benny is driving the golf cart, just super safe, stopping everywhere, looking left, looking right, doing a great job. And we come up to the ninth hole, and as we get there, I didn't really think about it, but I just kind of took my foot and put it on his right foot, the gas pedal, and I pressed it down for about 1.8 seconds to accelerate the golf cart out of his control. Benny, thinking about all the different things that can go wrong, I'm thinking it's going to be a ha-ha moment, and then he's going to get mad and angry. But instead, his brain goes in rapid mode, and he realizes, I'm not in control, this is dangerous, this is not good, this is reckless. So he turns the steering wheel right as I'm accelerating, and he jumps left off the golf cart towards safety, tumbles, ends up on his back. And he gets up, and he's got dirt on his knee. And then for about the next 8 hours, that's all anyone in my household heard about. Did you hear what Dad did? So reckless, so irresponsible. And maybe it's because I was pushing his buttons, or maybe because I just want him to grow and to stretch. But either way, I hurt my son that day. And it was funny that night, we're having a good moment laying down, as he's going to sleep. And I just said, "Buddy, I just want to tell you one more time, I am so sorry. I didn't mean for you to get hurt." And he said, "Why did you have to bring it up again, Dad?" And just left me with that moment. So Father's Day, hurt, hope, healing, and grace. That's really what we're talking about today. So think about your own dad. Think about your relationship with him, what it's like today, what it was like growing up. And I'm sure a lot of different emotions come up to the surface. Today I was holding a pound puppy in my closet. For those of you who don't know what a pound puppy is, it means you're probably under 35 years old. Pound puppy was an incredible toy. It was a gift that was given to me by my dad before he passed away. I saw it about 2 weeks before my birthday. I remember coming up and seeing up on the shelf a pound puppy brand new in the box, and I begged him, and he gave it to me early. And that pound puppy sadly has been lost, but my nephew bought me another pound puppy, and it's still in the box. And coincidentally enough, I had it in storage out of the way because it still kind of hurts to look at. But I pulled it down this morning and just kind of held it in my hands, and it's still in the box. And at some point, I probably do need to unpack it and just live in that moment a little bit more. But it's uncomfortable. It hurts to think about our dad sometimes. And so another reflection when you think about that, what is your relationship with your Heavenly Father like? Because like it or not, there is some carryover into your relationship with your earthly father, into your relationship with your heavenly Father. As much as we want to separate things, there's some residue, there's some wounds, there's some pain that gets in there. And so we have to decide, what do we do with this pain? Do we run from it, or do we sometimes take it out and hold it and unpack it? So today's message is about Father's Day, and we're using Luke 15 as our backdrop. Luke 15, commonly referred to as the prodigal son. It's a story about a son who leaves, takes everything, squanders it, and then is welcomed back with love and grace. And today, in our post-evangelical society, we often look at that as a story simply of sin and salvation. But I think this is a story that also is about the way that three people deal with relational hurt. It's a story about the way that three people deal with relational rupture. And I think it's about the path of hope, of healing, of restoration. So three characters. I love it. You have the older son. It reminds me of Benny, even though Benny's the youngest. Responsible, dependable, devoted, hardworking. The younger son, who's selfish, reckless, destructive. And then the father, who's patient and loving and apparently emotionally, mentally, and spiritually healthy and whole. At least at that point in the story. We don't know the backstory yet. But let's get into it. In Luke 15, Jesus said, "There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. And in those days, the older son was entitled to 2/3 of the dad's estate after dad's death, and the younger son was entitled to 1/3 of dad's estate after his death. And the younger son wanting it now, and dad giving it, it's like the equivalent of if you take a teenage person who goes to the parent and says, 'I just can't wait till I turn 18, I'm going to be out of here.' It's like that times 100. Because it's not just saying, 'I can't wait till I'm out of here,' it's also saying, 'I can't wait till you're dead.' And so it literally means, I don't want you in my life anymore. And then verse 13, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. The son longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. The son squandered everything, and he comes to a rock-bottom point of feeding pigs and being so hungry that he was craving their slop. And if you read a little bit more about Jewish culture, and just even the little that we know today, it's a pretty big deal. So he came to his senses and said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and I'm starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So the son's progression there goes from hurt, anger, sin, and then shame, but then he has hope. Maybe his dad will welcome him back. So he got up and went to his father, and I love this part. It said, while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. And I love the part that says he was a long way off when he saw him. The son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. So they began to celebrate. And if this was just a story about sin, salvation, redemption, I think it would have stopped there. But there's another son who's out working in the fields still. If I'm reading the story correctly, he actually already received his portion of the estate as well, but he's working, he's diligent, he's faithful, he's doing the things that needs to get done. He sees this commotion back home and realizes there's this huge party going on, and then he sees it's for his son, for his brother. And so he has this new pain to deal with in this story. And he comes, and I like what he says here. He comes to his father, And it says, the older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when the son of yours who has squandered your property, he doesn't even say my brother. He says, when the son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. And again, I love the father's response. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost, and he's found. So my first point today is that this is a story about hurt. This is a story about hurt. And hurt hurts. We just read that the son comes and says, I want my money. I wish you were dead. Let me leave. And we just take it at face value. But it doesn't just arrive at things at one day. There's not a family that's just going on and then one day that things just like, we're just going to argue over Kool-Aid and then I'm going to say that I want you. No, there had to be a backstory of pain. There had to be a backstory of arguments. There had to be a backstory of possibly even a mother's death. She's not mentioned here. Was there sibling rivalry? Was their dad showing favoritism? This is a story about hurt. This is a story about pain and what each family member has to do with it. And so I'm thinking about the youngest child's perspective. Any young child, babies of the family in the room? Oh, my 16-year-old daughter is in the room, and I'm sorry about that. Any youngest child's in the room? So when you're the youngest child, sometimes that's the worst, right? You don't get the same opportunities that your older siblings get. You get picked on by your siblings. You get overlooked. You get bossed around. You live in the shadows often cast by your perfect older brother or perfect older sister. And so I think about Ben in this scenario, even though he has some similarities of the older brother. I think about Ben because poor Ben. Ben is like fetch boy in our house. I need the remote, fetch it. I need this, I need that. And he's always just getting like sent off to grab these things. I think about Ben stepping out of line before my wife or myself are going to say anything. His 19-year-old sister chimes in and starts disciplining him. His 21-year-old chimes in. His 16-year-old, he deals with all this. We make a joke sometimes that the totem pole is our kids, and then Sonny, our dog, and then Ben, and he just gets left out. He deals with all these different things, and it's messed up. It's not fair. And somehow, being the baby of the family, even when he was as young as 3, he's still the one that they call and say, Ben, I need to go outside. I'm scared of the dark. I need you to come with me. And Ben would still do it. So in this story, can you imagine being the younger son? You work just as hard. You sweat just as much. You spend the same long days in the field, all the while knowing that one day your older brother is going to get twice as much as you, simply because you're the youngest. It's messed up. So the youngest hurts, and all the babies of the family said, amen. But maybe being the oldest sibling hurts more. Older siblings are kind of like unpaid assistant parents. You get in trouble for what you do. You get in trouble for what your little brother does. You have more expectations, more responsibility. You get told to be the example. You get told to be mature. Your younger brother hits you, and somehow mom says something along the lines of, stop instigating him. I don't think we've ever heard that in my household. But you get in trouble for all these different things. And then in this story, you're the older brother. Your younger brother has taken his possessions and just completely blown it up. He's disappointed everyone. He's disappeared. And somehow he's still the one that everyone is talking about. Somehow dad is still not noticing all the work that he's doing in the field. Dad is still just out there looking every day. Because it says he was looking from a far distance and saw his son. So can you imagine being the older brother and feeling like you've earned it, you're doing all the things, your younger brother has ran off, finally I'm going to get noticed, and then dad is still doing the things, still showing favoritism. Being the oldest stinks, being the youngest stinks. You know what might be even worse? You have the oldest brother, the youngest brother. I have a theory that there was a middle daughter called Dunice, and she just completely gets overlooked. A few of you get the reference there. I'm Dunice. And she doesn't even get mentioned in the story. No, but seriously, you have the older brother, younger brother. But what about the dad in the story? What about the dad's pain in the story? Because I know as kids, we usually don't think of that too much. Sometimes we just think about what our dad did to us or what he didn't do for us. And we don't always think about the pain that he grew up with. As parents, we deal with the challenges of bills, of jobs. We deal with the challenges of trying to make marriage work, trying to learn how to discipline our kids, trying to deal with homework and chores and running around sports, dealing with all these different things. And meanwhile, our kids, as they're acting out or doing just simply being kids, it starts bringing up all these wounds in our own life, in our own heart. And we have to deal with this as we're trying to do what's best for our kids. And we have all these different buttons that we didn't know existed that they're pushing, all these wounds that we thought were healed that we're realizing I still got work to do. And that's why I'm so amazed by the father in this story. From the one son he hears, I wish you were dead. Give me my inheritance. From the other son he hears, you never did anything for me. I mean, how would I respond if I was the dad? I think depending on the day, I'd probably respond with someone who needed to do a lot more healing and work on myself. My kids complain about something, and my go-to is not, I'm always with you, everything I have is yours. It's like, do you know how much I spend on your tuition? Do you know how much those shoes cost? Do you realize what I'm going through? Do you realize I never had these things growing up? And instead of it being about their development and growth, there's moments that it's just pain that comes out. And here's the crazy thing and the sad thing and the hard thing about being a parent, and mostly so about being a kid. Parents in this room, our coworkers often see the best part of us. Our neighbors often see the best. Our customers, our acquaintances, our friends, our church, they see the best things in our lives. They see the ways that we perform. They see the show that we put on. They see us when we're composed, when we're on it. And then we come home and we relax, and our kids see the worst. And I have a feeling that people in this room, maybe the person who has hurt you the most in your life was your dad. My kids, as good of an upbringing as I think they're having, I think I'm probably at this point in their life, thankfully, at this point in their life, I'm probably the person who has hurt them the worst, as much as I try hard. It's just the nature of being a parent. There are things that we do for their betterment, and there's times that we just simply drop the ball, and it hurts. So this is a story about hurt, but this is also a story about hope, and I think that's good news. But the bad news, hope hurts too. The father saw him a long way off, meaning he was watching, meaning he was looking. And I just think about how miserable that must have been, wondering, is he okay? Is he going to be safe? You know, yesterday we took my 21-year-old, dropped him off at a train station in Schenectady, New York. He's meeting he met the Cambodia team in JFK, and he's going off. And even with it being an awesome God moment, there's still this hope and this feeling, and it just brings up some hurt, because it's like, what if something goes wrong? What if my son doesn't make it home? That longing year after year. And I think about the younger son's hope when he said, maybe my dad will welcome me back. Maybe he'll accept me as a servant. And I think that must have hurt holding on to that hope, because when you hold on to hope, it sets you up for rejection. What if he doesn't welcome me back? What if everyone sees me? What if they laugh? What if I'm turned away? And the older brother having hope that maybe one day his dad will notice him. Maybe his dad would do something for him. So hope can be painful and a miserable exercise, because it opens us up to the possibility of disappointment. Hope means there's still something that we want, something we're reaching for, something we're longing for, something we haven't completely given up on. And so hope hurts. You know what hurts less than hope? Giving up. Accepting that this is just the way things are. I think that's why so many people die on a place like Skid Row, because it hurts to think about the reality of, what if I try to go back home and I'm rejected? So it hurts less just to accept it, just to protect ourselves from disappointment. It hurts less to flee from it like the younger son did. And it also hurts less just to overcompensate, which you see that in the brother's life, the older brother. Maybe if I just work harder and do all these different things, I can earn it, I can do this. Maybe if I don't make myself as vulnerable, if I work hard, if I rescue others, if I take care of everything around me, if I build up the family wealth, it hurts to hope. So why do it? Simply without hope, there's no reconciliation. Without hope, there's no restoration. Without hope, there is no healing. And the bottom line is if you can't hope, then you can't heal. So this is a story about hope, but thankfully this is a story about healing. The younger son had to confront his shame head on and march home. He came to a place where he had to be prepared to deal with the consequences of his actions. He came face to face with the people that he hurt and the people who hurt him. He had to be willing to be seen and be vulnerable in order to be healed, and that part of the process hurts. And the older son, he could have shut down. He could have just stayed in the field working. He could have overcompensated. He could have withdrew, and instead he names it. He comes and he confronts his dad, and he names the pain. Maybe he doesn't say it with the best words. Maybe he doesn't say it gracefully, but he at least says it honestly, and he voices his hurt. And so when you have the courage to face the pain and name it, you can create the opportunity for healing. I like to think of myself as a man's man, I guess maybe depending on the side of town or where I'm at. I can grab a redfish by the lips, I can clean a fish, build a fire, hair on my back, just manly, At least when I go to Cafecito Jack's and order a brown sugar espresso with some cinnamon on it, iced with oat milk because of my tummy. I'm, a fairly manly man, but I've learned over the years just to kind of embrace the vulnerability, embrace some of the hurt, break out the pound puppy. And I remember being on the missions trip in Brazil. And, I'm there with my son, my 21-year-old is there, and we have some awesome moments on this trip. And I'm watching a baptism take place in a little tributary of the Amazon River. The sun is setting, just a beautiful scenery, and there's this kid that we had met him about 8 months before, was getting baptized. And I say kid, he was probably 17 years old. His parents weren't there, I don't know his backstory, but he had this group of men as we're there fishing in the Amazon that were all around him, and he goes down, he gets baptized in the water, and he comes up, and someone snaps a picture, and I feel like my brain snapped a picture. As the sun rays are there, he comes up out of the water, and he gets the best hug of his life from another man. And then he steps a couple steps out of the water, and he's the stairs, and he gets another hug from another guy, and I'm just like, man, how beautiful is that? And I'm on the phone with my wife, the manly guy that I am, and I just say out loud, said, I wish I would have gotten some more hugs like that growing up. I've had a couple, and they were in church. I was 19 years old, my first break from college, back with Jared. Came home, and I went to visit my church, and we had an evening service. Back then, you would have church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And I remember service is over, and then I got to go back to college, and I just get kind of terrified about adulthood. And I didn't really have someone, that I felt comfortable just kind of talking with and sharing those things. So I just tried to man up. And I'm walking out with my head down, and I got some tears. And then out steps Bill Molinex, a true man's man. He wouldn't get a brown sugar shaken espresso. He steps out, gravelly, older dude, and he just wraps his arms around me and gives me a bear hug. And I just cried on his shoulder. And it felt so good. And I told my wife after seeing this baptism, I was like, it reminded me of that hug that I get. And I was like, I'd really like, another hug like that. So if any men want to come up here right now, I welcome it. But I tell that to my wife, and we go to church service, and it's hot, and it's sweaty, and we're doing all this. And then I'm, leaving church, and I'm doing fine. I'm not like just broken. I'm just like, I just voiced it. I just named it. And as I'm leaving, one of the older dudes in the church, he just steps forward and he wraps his arm around me, and I get caught like in an uncomfortable position like this, and he hugs me, and I'm trying to like not be awkward about it, but my lower back, my L5S1, because I am a middle-aged man, I can't stay like that, so I just have to do it. And I'm thinking just it's going to be a church hug, and then he doesn't let me go. And so I drop my head on his shoulder, and I just relax, and I cry, and I get the hug that I wanted, that I needed. And man, it feels good. When you have the courage to name it, you open up the opportunity for you to receive what you need. And I know it seems easier just to ignore those needs, to push them down, to run from it. But when you name it, you open the door for healing. Do you want to be healed today? Do you want healing? This is a story about grace. Jesus is trying to tell people what the kingdom of God is like, and he says it's like a family, like a messed up family, with hurt, with the opportunity for hope, for healing, for restoration, but none of that happens without grace. Showing grace is tough. If your dad is still on the earth, walking around, to go up to him and name the ways that you've been hurt and invite reconciliation, and even if there's no repentance there, to still show grace. Showing grace is tough. You're giving someone what they haven't earned and maybe don't deserve. And showing grace, if we're not careful, can lead to a sense of pride and false self-esteem because it can create a power imbalance. So grace is tough. Receiving grace is also tough. I don't want relational restoration because I don't want to be forgiven. I don't want to feel indebted to someone. I don't want to humble myself. But seeing grace offered to someone else might be the hardest thing. Seeing grace offered to someone else might be the hardest thing because we see the most obvious truth. It's not fair. And even in the best moments of me as a dad, when I'm showing grace, when I'm showing love, sometimes there's still the voice in the back of my head that said, this isn't fair. And that's completely true. Because grace is not fair. Grace is grace. Grace is giving something to someone else that they don't deserve, that they have not earned. Grace is receiving something from someone else that you have not earned. And maybe you don't deserve. It's grace. I don't know the dad's story, but I can only imagine the level of inner work and healing that he had to have come to at that point. We don't see how he responded years before, but we see in that moment when his kids just were open about their pain, we see him respond in a way that shows how much grace the dad had in his life and how much grace he had previously received. Because that moment was all about his kids. The moment was not about the way that trying to defend himself, trying to justify previous actions. It just was simply, how do I make this moment today about their betterment? And so parents, to us in this room, it's tough. I've sat with people over the last couple weeks that have so much regret, older people who are estranged from their children and trying to work things out. And it's tough because so much of what keeps happening every day with their interactions with their kids and their loved ones, it keeps bringing up wounds from their own childhood, things that their own mom or dad did to them when they were just a kid, and they're trying to work through this. And so the litmus test of where grace is in our lives is, can we make the moments about someone else? Can we have enough healing in our lives that when someone is in need, we can acknowledge our pain, we can acknowledge our hurt, but we can still make that moment about grace to someone else. I wrestled with so many different scriptures, so many different stories. And I think about a good dad, a perfect dad, bringing pain to his child. And I thought about Jesus on the cross. You know, we speak about Jesus' physical wounds a lot, the spear, the thorns, the nails, but we're reminded about the emotional pain as well. You're hanging on the cross, and in a moment where you so much need God's grace, you're alone. And Jesus cries out, my Father, why have you forsaken me? Jesus went through that alone so that you don't have to anymore. As a 44-year-old rugged man's man, I can face the pain, I can face the hurt, I can face the dark, but I can't do it alone. Sometimes even I need little Benny to come with me. I've spent a lot of money and a lot of time in class for mental health counseling, and there's one simple truth that just keeps coming up over and over and over and over again. It's like I feel like they could charge much less money and much less time for this simple truth. We're hurt in relationship, and we're healed in relationship. You can't do it alone. The son had to come back home for healing. The older son had to come to his dad and say it out loud for the opportunity for healing. Healing's not alone behind a plow. Healing is not alone spreading our wings, living the life that we want to live. Healing is in relationship.